Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Uncommon Truth with Bob Embury and myself, Heath Stone. I just thought we'd start this morning by just sharing a little bit about where we're at, what we're doing, and then so I'm currently located at one of my most favorite locations, a place where I learned to golf, and that's the Redwoods Golf Course in Langley, BC. I just decided I'd come and stand out in the sunshine and be in an environment of something that I am passionate about. I love to do. I'm not getting to play today, but at least I'm in proximity to it. So really feel good, and that sun coming down on my face. Bob, where are you at right now?
Sun's shining here too, my friend. Vernon, British Columbia. So looks like it's going to get up to about 17, 18 degrees today. And I'm here. My mom had a little trip and fall the other day, so I'm up here to support her. Been here for about 5 days. I'm heading back for Easter weekend to North Van, but just at the end of a great experience with Mom.
Nice. Well, I think that's awesome to be able to spend some time with her, and that he's such a good man to go up and support her and to be with her, the ones that supported us for so many years, and made us who we are.
Very true. Well, she's 89 years old, man.
That's, yeah, she is. It's where you came from, so you know she's a fighter.
She's awesome. She's awesome.
Yeah. So guys, today we're gonna have a good chat, Bob and I, and we're just gonna look forward to any feedback that you guys might have, or emails, or comments that you're gonna make. But today we are gonna talk a little bit more about this fear and the circumstance of our life with living with COVID-19, but overall at a much higher level. Just fear is one thing that every single human has in common, that we all deal with it and fight with that every day of our life. And are we going to allow it to control us or not? So today, Bob and I are going to talk about fear. We're going to actually ask a bunch of other questions too. We're going to ask questions such as, what are the fear killers? From there, we're going to lead into, how do we predict our future in spite of our fears, right? And that's going to lead us right into, well, if we're predicting our future, how do we change and improve our attitude and our overall mindset in that course of changing our life? And then the final question that we'll end with is, what is the reality or the truth about our current life circumstances? Is it happening for us, or is it all happening against us? So, Bob, I know you've got lots to say on it. Start us out. And what is it that you feel fear does for us? Does it do anything good? Does it do only bad? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, great questions, bud. Great questions. You were absolutely right when you mentioned that fear plays a big part of a person's life. It's there in many events in life. As an example, my mom had this little spill the other day, right? She's 89 years old. And so, along with fear for her health, fear for her future, comes like other emotions like worry and anxiety. And these are all connected to fear. So fear is really is an emotion based on a perceived danger or threat, which causes a psychological episode to occur, right? So it's brain related, and most of the time, fear is from a perceived danger or a perceived threat. So I was just shopping for Mom the other day, and I was in a grocery store, and with COVID-19, right, we're supposed to be 6 meters away or something like that from each other, 6 feet away. And the aisles are quite small. And so I started to approach a young lady and her baby. And as I started to get closer and closer, she looks up, and I'm probably about 15, 20 feet away from her. And I'm quite aware that I'm not going to go into her zone, right? But she looks right up at me. You can just see it in her eyes that she perceived that there was a threat. She could perceive danger. She could perceive, and she's just started to get emotional about it when I stopped. And then she took a moment or two and just went back to her shopping. I waited for her to do her thing, and she went by me, and all was good. But that's how fear works, right? something happens, or something you want to do something, or something happens to you, you want to do something, and then your brain starts to take over. So you want to ask somebody out for a date, your brain's a big part of that. If you're going to ask for a raise, your brain's a big part of that. If all of a sudden a spider appears in the bathroom, um, or bigger issues perhaps, like you're going to start a new business, or you're going to, you look at your bank account and there's no money in your bank account, or perhaps you haven't had a relationship for a while and you're quite lonely. So these are normal human fears: fear of being lonely, fear of intimacy, fear of failure, fear of public speaking. There's many fears that people have, and again, these are just psychological things we think about, psychological things that create an emotion, and then our brain decides what we're going to do with that emotion. Are we going to fight, or are we going to run away from it, right? And a lot of research on this that says there's a part of our brain that when we see something that we perceive as a threat, they call it the prehistoric brain. Yeah, you make an an assessment of the danger, make an assessment of the threat, and you make a decision whether you're going to fight or you're going to flee from that situation. And fleeing might not is in the old days when you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, maybe that meant running away. But now sometimes fleeing is sitting in front of a computer playing games all day, right? You just remove yourself from the decision, you remove yourself from the situation, and thus you get rid of that threat simply by involving yourself in activities which you don't have to deal with the threat. So that's a little bit of background on my thoughts about fear, and I'd like to hear what you have to say, Bud.
Well, I think you said it so well that fear really is just a feeling. And sometimes our feelings do lie to us in life, and sometimes they are there to protect us. So one thing on the prehistoric brain that you talked about that has been around since the beginning of time, and there's only two fears that we're actually born with: the fear of falling, heights, and the other fear is the loud noises.
Loud noises
come from loud noises. Yeah, especially you think of the prehistoric brain. If there's a big crack, right? A tree could be snapping, a rock could be falling, whatever it would be. But those are the two fears inset in us. All other fears, based on this practical psychology and the psychologists doing these studies, has shown they're learned. So that means if it's learned, that fear really is false events or evidence appearing real. It's a learned belief structure that we have, this fear of why is one person afraid of one thing and another person isn't? Because it's learned. They've overcome, some have overcome it and some have not. So what we don't overcome controls us, and that's that feeling of fear, that uncertainty that comes into our lives that way. So I think you brought up a lot of really great common fears. And I think that as we start to dig in, this is a great segue for us, I think, into what are those fear killers? And it's, as we're talking about fear, what is it that's going to actually help us fight this both prehistoric and learned fears? So I'm going to put it back to you, Bob, in that, what do you feel are the fear killers? Say hi to Mom.
Hey, hi, Mom.
Actually, why don't you bring her on? Let's introduce Mom real quick. We don't have to. We don't have to have a fear of her making a noise or her not being involved, right?
She's making her way around. She'll be here in a sec, buddy.
Nice. That's, even that. Right? There's a prime example of a simple little thing, but we all have a standard belief or fear that we need to do things in a certain way. Mm-hmm. I do, you do, we all do. And that's learned based on what we were taught from our parents, from business, a culture, mentors, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. That's it. So I look forward to introducing mom.
At some point in time here, she's making her way across back to her coffee, so I think she's going to be fine.
Oh, perfect. So anyways, fear killers, Bob. What do you think are the things that we can do to fight against fear itself?
Well, the really interesting thing about fear is if you don't kill it, if you don't battle it, then it just keeps coming up. So if you have a fear of loneliness, or if you have anxiety about money, or fear of not having enough money, then what happens is that becomes a normal part of your life, your week, your day, your week, your month as you go through, right? So if you have those fears when you're very young, let's say in your early 20s, and you don't kill them, you don't deal with those fears, then they just become part of your life, and they constantly are bothering you. You're constantly having to deal with the physiological um, results of fear, like upset stomach, headaches, physical things that happen as a result of too much worry, too much anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. So killing them or dealing with the fears is really an important part of a human being growing up and maturing. So that's what I've noticed over my life is to identify your fears is a critical component. Like, what are my major fears? What are the things that happened in my childhood? What are the things that I've experienced when I was quite young that are with me as a young adult, or with me as a maturing person, right? As we take them into the marriage, we take them into the being a father, we take them into being a business person, and we live with those things. So the sooner we can identify them, the sooner that we can isolate them and then deal with them. And you'd call them kill it, right? So how do we kill it? So there's a bit of uncommon truth here. Is the number one way that you kill the fear is you identify it, and then you overcome it. And so a lot of studies show that by exposing ourselves to the fear and then working around the fear and taking action on the fear is probably the most effective way to deal with it long term. I'll give you an example about when I was young. I was taught that money was um, a thing that had to be strictly controlled. There was a limited amount of it, and realized that that wasn't the case. That in fact, money was a great resource and a great tool, but there was no real reason to fear lack of money, as there's lots of it in the world and continues to be growing exponentially. So by becoming exposed to money, by understanding that that was a fear of mine, I could take action. So you take action, many actions. One of them is just automatically saving money. So every time you get a check, every time you get any money in, you put a certain amount of money away, 10%, 15%, just of that goes away. And then over time, of course, you've got money saved up. So it's difficult to fear shortages of money when you have money. So
Well said.
Kill that fear. Kill that fear.
So I would say then, from what I just heard you say, let's deal with fear as an acronym, as we already did, but the killers of fear is an acronym as well, because I need things to help me remember these things. So when I'm in a state of fear or wanting to do it, F stands for me, faith, or another word, focus. So whatever we focus on, we make room for. Whatever we focus on, we find, it grows, and eventually we become it. And we will feel that fear. So I think F, based on what you've just said, the truth is that the killer of fear, the first one, is faith. To step forward, to try to embrace the fear, which is really a vapor in most cases. And as soon as you reach out to grab that hologram, it's gone. It's just a vapor. It disappears. So, yeah, I think that's a great summary of what you just said, is that we just really got to have that faith and that focus to step forward and to take I can't do something and put it on our must do thing, that we believe in ourselves and that we have faith in ourselves, faith in others, and then we have the focus that discipline to address it and move forward towards it. If as soon as we step back from it, we've given power to it and given it control in our lives.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my encouragement, is that we really take it. I don't care what it is, whether it's a relationship and a hard discussion needs to be had with a child, with a parent, with a spouse, an employee, a colleague. There's times when we just have a fear of what they think or what their response would be. We want to avoid conflict. I know I do. But sometimes the right thing is to step forward and to, as lovingly as we can, be truthful and direct about that conversation. And when we focus on it, do it in a respectful way, then that faith by stepping forward kills that fear.
Yeah.
So,
hey, sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say that, by focusing by having focus, right, and having faith, what you're doing is you're battling it. You're battling the fear. You're in effect pushing the fear down, removing the fear, depending on how much focus you have and how much faith you have. And interestingly enough, because it's a human condition, a human mental condition has been with us since the dawn of time. All the great religions of the world have dealt with this fear thing because it's a human condition. And there's a great lesson in many lessons in the Bible. So we have in the Bible, the phrase "fear not" is used 80 times, at least 80 times in the Bible, because
fear itself, Bob, just to support you on that point, is actually talked about over 600 times. But the word and the phrase of "fear not" alone is 80.
Is 80. No, that's right. And why is it that much? And the answer is, one of the great human conditions for any human to have is the feeling of hope, the feeling of there's something in my future that I can do, that I can make my life better. I can change my circumstance. I can alter my current reality into something better. That's the feeling of hope. And fear crushes hope. Fear does not let hope in. So by us having faith, we have the ability to push fear aside, bring hope forward.
Well said. So well said. And specifically, I have a, as you talked, many people have different beliefs and views, whether it be, in religion and in the spiritual topic. But for me, I use God, another acronym I love, but God to me stands for the giver of our destiny. Giver of our destiny. It's not a negative thing of a big guy sitting over there. It's a book of help to help us live wisely. So, and what you just talked about, hope is huge. It actually is energy itself. It's a driving force. It's an energy that moves us forward, that we have a hope that things will be better, that we will grow. And that leads to enthusiasm. So our F for faith and focus will help drive our hope, which is our energy and our enthusiasm. These are faith killers. And that energy ultimately leads to A, which is our attitude. What is the belief or the meaning we have around the fear? Let's talk a little bit about that now. So we're in fear, whatever it might be. How important, Bob, do you feel our choice over our attitude is?
That's a great, that's a big issue with the person that, let's say a person hasn't worked in a career that they've really, really enjoyed. Maybe they're in their 30s and they've gone through several careers and they've really never enjoyed a career. They don't enjoy getting up in the morning. They don't enjoy going to work. And they're wondering, like, what's my future? What's my passion? What am I supposed to be doing? And each day they go to work and there's no enthusiasm, very little enthusiasm, very little excitement, very little energy. And over time, of course, that even probably diminishes in that specific situation. So there's actually a saying called the serenity prayer. This has been around for a long time, and it says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And this would be a good example about attitude. So in my estimation, to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. So the attitude in that particular situation that I was talking about would be, I would wake up in the morning, go, I'm not excited about going to work. My energy level is very low. I've got all these talents and skills and abilities I'm not using, but I don't know which direction to go into. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what my passion is. So thus the attitude would be, well, it's time for exploration. It's time for research. It's time for me to make the decision that I can change my career. I can change my job. I just have to have the courage to change that job. And that's a mental shift. It's a mental construct of instead of being trapped in the job to pay off the debts, to pay off the mortgage, to feed myself. It's giving yourself permission to and the permission to hope, and the permission to use your talents and your skills to find the thing that you really want to get up for in the morning, to find your purpose, to find your mission, and then start on that journey, start on that big adventure of finding the thing that's perfect for you.
Wow, brother, that's well said. So I just had a little epiphany from you. Thanks for that. And that is that we're talking about attitude, but really the big word is acceptance. The A word is acceptance of the moment, acceptance of the circumstance. Because once you accept it, we move right into the ability and the empowerment that we can respond, we can research and change the response, or choose the response, which really goes to what rituals or reaction or response can I do to this fear to make it go away. So that is really about change. So I think, just to summarize it, the fear killers, and this is amazing because it leads right into the next question of how do we predict our future. So let's recap it. Fear. To kill fear, you must have faith in yourself and your ability to overcome it, and then focus. That leads, that focus, on hope, and that there is an ability, that energy, that positive energy, to be enthusiastic and to embrace and then accept it as it is. It's okay. You're afraid. So the minute you accept that, you now have a choice in your attitude. That attitude is surrounding your beliefs and your meanings on it. From that attitude, we actually take action, and we choose to research and then respond from truth, not from our feelings. Our feelings sometimes lie to us. Life is about our feelings, and our belief about our life condition is affected by our beliefs and our meanings. Or our blueprint is another word that Tony Robbins talks about quite a bit. So life condition equals our blueprint and belief. Guess what? We're fulfilled, we're happy, we're not afraid. When our life condition does not equal our blueprint or our beliefs, our meanings that we have about that fear, we are unhappy, fearful, angry, whatever that negative emotion would be, because we are not focused, we're not embracing, we're not accepting, and we are not responding and creating the rituals and the right response to change. So that, guys, is for me the lesson of learning from our first question about fear. What are those key faith killers? Faith killers, fear killers, and it is that overall faith in ourselves, and that we do not have to fear. We have choice. That choice now leads us to that next question. What do I want, and how do I predict mine or our future? If it's a relationship, but how do we all together talk about that? How do we predict our future? Well, I got one statement that is very short. The only way to truly be able to predict the future is to create it. So, Bob, what do you think is the best way for us to create our future?
Probably the first step for creating your future is to recognize a bit of the past, or a lot of the past, really. One of the most important things I've ever done in my life is to take a look at the kind of person that I was growing up, and reflecting on who were the people in my life that made me or helped develop me into the person I am today. So in my particular case, I had a terrific mother, terrific father, really good brother, right? So I have that strong family unit. And then I was raised in a small town. There's lots of opportunity in a small town to join things, play in sports teams. And I was afforded those opportunities. So as growing up, I got a chance to build character. I got a chance to look at what virtues were, what good human beings did, hardworking, dedicated families. So I had those experiences growing up that really were foundational to me as a young man, as a young adult. So when I left the house, I had all these experiences that allowed me they were the fundamental building blocks that I could stand on. They weren't wobbly. They were good, strong building blocks. And one of the biggest building blocks was this thing called mindset. So I went to, from this very small town, 5,000 people, I knew that I could stay in the town and have quite a good career, working for the mills or the mines, raise a family there. But my mindset was more of a growth mindset. I wanted to explore the world. So I had a paradigm that I could learn. I had a paradigm that I could be successful. I had the drive and ambition to do the exploration and have the adventures. And I guess I didn't have a very big need for security at that time, for certainty, right? I wanted more of uncertainty and more of a chance to build significance for myself and maybe for others as we went through. But it's the difference between a growth mindset, in my estimation, and a fixed mindset. So a lot of research on this, Heath, that people have one or the other for different situations or different issues, or just for their life too, right? And the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset is the person's ability to look at themselves and say, I am able, I am capable, I will, I can. I'm not entrenched in the person I am today. I can be something more, something better. I can learn, I can grow. That's the growth mindset. The fixed is, I am who I am. The skills I have are the skills I have. And what you see is what you get. And it's not that one is bad and one is good. It's just you have more opportunity to change the future if you have a growth mindset, comparatively speaking, than if you have a fixed mindset. So if you understand that, if you understand where you come from, the impacts that you've had, the person you are, the character you are, and the mindset that you have, then you can take a look at the future and say, if I can change certain things in my life, if I can change my physical location, if I can change my career, if I can change my the things I do on a daily basis, I can change my body, I can change the way I learn, I can change these sorts of things, then you can start to take control of that future. I think I mentioned before that is human beings are the only living things on planet Earth that they have the ability to stop what they're doing and go in a totally different direction. We're not regimented by by nature just to do the same things over and over and over again. We can change whatever we want, whenever we want it. So those, I
Well
think
said.
those are the foundations for building a good future for yourself, creating the future you want.
So, when you're talking about mindset, Bob, I think if I might, I'm going to take a minute just to expand on that. I know we've talked about
Sure.
this before in other episodes, but one of the things that I learned through my education over the last 3 years of studying is that our mindset is really a triad or a trinity of our focus, our language and our self-talk, and our physiology. And these three key elements, which you've just already alluded to, really drive that attitude, that mindset, and ultimately even our beliefs and the meanings that we choose to make real, which would then affect our emotions, right? Because those beliefs and meanings, as I was just talking about previously, ultimately create an emotion, and then the emotion creates an action or a reaction, and that's a huge, it's a real huge element. Well, a lot of us would say in life, it's quite easy, as we've talked about, to do a physical action. You can make your move, you can do 10 push-ups, give me, 10 burpees, whatever it is. And that physical activity, as we've talked about before, has a significant impact on our state. I think what you have alluded to, and a lot of us I really like, is on language. And the thing that we're doing quite a bit in our language area on how that we can help predict it is what comes out of our mouth shows actually the condition of our heart. So if what we're speaking is fear-based, is negative-based, that sits inside us in our heart, affects our feelings, and then it comes out and then drives our self-belief, the meanings we have, and therefore our actions and our responses in each circumstance. So something that I have learned that's become very effective for me is we've all heard of incantations or chants or things like that. Every team, there isn't a military force on earth that doesn't use them for, we are champions, we are warriors, and they're doing their hikes and their physical activities to help them, to lift each other's spirits up, to do things. So what I learned and have found highly effective in my life, and I'll share one that I have, because it involves physicalness and your physiology when you do it properly. It brings up emotions. It speaks the virtues and the focus of your life into your language. And at the beginning, you don't always feel it. I use it most when I don't feel what I want to feel. But it causes a state change because it takes what I believe and who I want to become. Means I have to be it now. You can't become anything. You have to be it to become it. So therefore, I speak that out, and I speak it into existence, or in some language would say manifest it. And I combine it with enthusiasm and with energy and physiological action. So if I might, I'll just share my G-Factor life incantation, which I actually call them I-cantations. Because if I have fear about something and I'm saying I can't do it, or I'm afraid to take action, that means I have to, I must. It can't be I can, I will. It has to become I must. So humbly, I'll share it. So I'll just say mine. I am a G-Factor. I am living a loving, grateful, and generous life. I am a leader that's leading, not following, creating, not destroying. I'm believing, not doubting. I am a factor for good and for God. I am a leader that's defying the odds. I'm being my best. I'm creating and setting new standards, and I am stepping up to grow, to give, and to get my ideal form of life, full of God's love and abundance. I am a G-Factor. Now, I say that, and as I repeat it, and as I go over and over, it creates so much energy in me. The energy just amps up and amps up and amps up, because all of the virtues I want to live my life by, all of the things I want to achieve, all the fear killers are in there. And that was created as at a Tony Robbins event that I was at, and it's dynamic how it has an impact. And I guess where I'm going with that and is that I've sort of set up this word called G factor, which to me means a growth factor, a generous factor, a giving factor, a God factor. And a factor is a key element or an ingredient in the achievement of an outcome. I want to be a factor in my life change. I want to be a factor in Bob, in my girlfriend Susan's life. I want to be a factor in my son's life. I want to be a factor that's a positive influence. And how do I do that? I have to create it. I have to choose what my attitude will be. So I use what I call incantations to really affect my state, my mindset. And there's times where I'm saying it under my breath or in my mind because I'm facing a certain fear, and it's just not appropriate to be saying it out loud, but it's powerful. So that's a bit of a long-winded, but I appreciate the opportunity to share that from my aspect of life of how I overcome certain fears. What are your thoughts on the power of an incantation, Bob?
Well, Heath, thanks for sharing that. I think that's actually quite, for me to hear that, it's quite inspirational. And, I would encourage listeners, even though Heath obviously has taken a significant amount of time and a significant amount of effort to articulate what's important to him. And what he said was, by doing that, it's been an amazing inspiration to get up each and every morning and to create his future. And there's a ton of research that says that this is an amazing thing for a human being to do, is to actually create. And I'll go back to something I learned in the 80s, which was Stephen Covey said that human beings should seriously consider having a mission in life. And and that's been proven over and over again in study after study. People that have mission in life, have purpose in life, get up each and every morning with focus. They get up each and every morning with a list of things to do to achieve that mission and those purposes. And that's what he's sharing when he's sharing these incantations. So the power of incantation, the power of mission, the power of purpose is a mental construct that gives you guidance, gives you direction, gives you focus. So Heath, good work on that. I've got my own, of course, and I'll share that with you one day. Share this on this our talk show as well one day. But it does give you direction. It does give you purpose, and it doesn't have to be long-winded. It could be one simple phrase.
That's a great thing. So can I just comment on that? I appreciate that. I made a very long one. That is a life mission statement, basically, of what I'm doing and empowered to do. But I have many, many short ones, right? Mm-hmm. Every day before I go to the gym, or I play around a golf, or I go for a run, I say, I'm a world-class athlete. Well, what does that mean? But I'm repeating it over and over again. It means I'm willing to do the activities like a world-class athlete, because, will I ever be an Olympic gold medalist? No, that's not my passion. It's not my desire. Am I going to be a number one golfer in the world? No, that's not my ultimate. I would love to be, but that's not going to be my destiny. But the point is, I can still behave. I can still choose to have the attitude of a world-class athlete in everything that I do, every gym session, every run I go on, every round of golf, with my focus, with my language, and with my physiology.
Yeah.
So short and sweet is often better. Well,
yeah, and I think what when you started this process years ago, I would guess that it was short thoughts, right? And over the years, it's evolved. It's evolved into a more complex, dynamic series of statements where you can really articulate it because you're living it. So, but I just want to encourage listeners to consider that, to read up on mission and vision and purpose, and to explore what their particular individual, unique mission, vision, and purposes are, because that's been my experience. Is that you could have 12 people in a room and do activities with those 12 people, and while there'll be some similarities, as we're all human beings, each one would be unique. Each one would be different, very special to that person, to that person's future. And that's the beautiful thing about living on planet Earth, is I really do believe that even in the most tragic, serious, negative situations that happen to us, we can still, with those situations, move ourselves forward, improve our improve ourselves as best we can. So we do have control, not over everything, but over many things, and perhaps almost all things if you really actually seriously take a look at it. So even if you
Right.
have a sickness or an illness or a serious injury, many people, I've worked through this as well. My mom's just going through it as well. It's like the future is ahead of us. Deal with it, move, take action.
Yeah. You know, Bob, I think just to summarize the question then, of, how do we predict our future? And what we've talked about it is creating it. Well, ultimately, how do we create it, right? Well, we've talked about our mindset, how we control our focus, our language, our physiology, but it really is a critical thing, is it our belief that even when we're uncertain about our times, that we're able to combine and really combine our focus and all the faith, I keep saying faith killers because faith is so important. But the fear killers starts with that faith, that focus, and then moving forward and embracing it, accepting it, and then responding to it, right? Taking action. What is the real action of creation? It's defining a destination. It's creating a map, that massive action plan, having that vision that you can see it, dream it, but then you got to be willing to document it and take action, whether it's creating an incantation, whether it's doing a business plan. It could be anything, but it doesn't need to be complicated. It's really clearly defining the end destination, accepting where you are, and then ultimately the road or the map to the destination from where you are is just one step at a time, right? By creating those habits
and,
that are
and
going to drive it forward.
And Heath, just to build on that, because I really like your comment about it being a map, right? Your future being a map. So for the listeners that have been on trips before, that's exactly what it is. Let's say we wanted to go from Vancouver all the way down to South Carolina. So you have to have the picture of South Carolina in your mind first, right? That's the end in mind. That's the final destination. And then you kind of plot your map, your road map, right? First we're going to go here, then we're going to go there, and here's the way we're going to get to South Carolina. But the exciting thing about the map is, even for your own future, is there's many roads to South Carolina. There's many ways to get there. So you might start out on your motorcycle, but you might end up driving there in a bus, right? Being a passenger in a bus during the last leg of the trip, down a country road you've never thought you'd be on, but you still can end up in South Carolina. So I'm not sure the metaphor is a great one, but I really do think that's the future. It's like, to the best of my ability, I get up each and every day thinking that I'm going to create this preferred future for myself, but there's many things that change my direction as I go along. And it's all an adventure. It's all a terrific adventure at the end of the game. But it starts with that map. So good for you to point that out, my friend.
So that leads us, I think, well into our talking point number 3 then, is how do we actually change and improve our attitude, our mindset, and create that map? I think we need to expand just a little bit more. What do you think on that growth mindset versus fixed mindset? And what is the truth about that? Because if we're not going to be able to see the difference between them, we're basically stuck, right? And if we're not willing to destroy our old habits, you can't change them. That's the hardest part about habits. You got to destroy it and move to creating and replacing them with new habits, new rituals is what I like to call them, because rituals drive your results. And those rituals come from a I can attitude versus I can't attitude, which leads us right back into that discussion on growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So I know you've done some research on that. Could you maybe just give a few just key points on that so that we can really knock this third talking point of that back? It is a little bit on the map discussion, but how do we really define it and that destination and the steps that you would see in it to create that map through the change of our fixed to growth mindset? So I'll leave it to you.
Thanks, bud. I think the first step is to look in the mirror. So I read a book, again, in my early developmental stage, is probably 25, 26 years old, called The Man in the Mirror. And it was a book about men and what they were good at and the areas that they should seriously take a good reflective analysis about where they were at that point in time in order to move forward, in order to create a new future. And the fundamental of the book said, hey, there's some fundamentals to a human being. One is you have a mind. What are you doing with that mind? Take a look in the mirror and saying, are you really developing your mind? Or is it just kind of evolving, developing on its own? Are you actually taking intentional action to work on your mind? Then it said, look at your body. Humans are body too, physical beings. Is your body just doing its thing? Or are you taking intentional action to do something about your body? Are you feeding it right? Are you exercising it right? Are you doing stuff on a weekly basis to deal with that? It said that people are spiritual creatures, that spirit or soul is part of every human being. Tons of documented proof on that as well. What are you doing there? Are you just letting that sit? Are you exploring that area? Are you learning in that area? Are you growing in that area? What are you doing intentionally in that area? And the last piece, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, just on that one point of human, I find this quite humorous almost, that human being, human, the actual definition of human, when you go back to the original Greek and Latin of it, is hue or humus, dirt. Man means ish, which is spirit. It's a spirit in a dirt suit. That's what a human being is. And that's just because, and that's actual. If you go and do the research, you will find this out. And I find it quite humorous that we, in our culture, our society, around this very point, try to take out the fact that take the spirit out. Well, if you take the spirit out, then you're just a big pile of dirt, right? So we all say we're human beings, but we don't even really know what that meant. And it really had an impact on me. I went, oh my goodness. And that's really impacted me in my spiritual walk. So I interrupted there, but it just was on that point that you were making.
Yeah, you didn't interrupt there. You just added to the conversation, which I appreciate. And that is the truth. So we got mind, body, and spirit right there. And the fourth thing that that the book talked about, which was really powerful for me, was take a look at relationships in your life. That would be your significant other, your children, your friends, your family, and your community, the people in your community as well. And it asked the poignant question: look in the mirror. Are you taking intentional action to build those relationships, or are you just kind of going with the flow? Or not thinking about them? And as a young man, in all of those areas, I was just living. I was actually concentrating a lot of my time on habits, doing things out of habit that I'd gotten into. As an example, I was a big reader as a child, and so I'd read fiction, tons and tons of fiction. And even when I was reading that book, the Man in the Mirror, probably 95% of my time reading was spent reading fiction. And if you take a look at the opportunity to expand your mind, the opportunity to learn, the opportunity to become excellent, the opportunity to become a leading professional in a certain area or a leading knowledge expert in a certain area, that could be part of anybody's future. They just have to be dedicated and take action intentionally to do that. And so I made a commitment at that time to read a book, nonfiction, on professional subjects, one book a month, 12 books a year. So I was going to invest probably, let's say, $200-300 in my brain each and every year. And that made a tremendous impact on my life just by picking up a book. And Heath, I can honestly say, as they say to my listeners, I don't think I've ever read one of those books cover to cover. Maybe a couple, 2 or 3. I've got hundreds of books by now, but I've never read them cover to cover. But just by picking them up, flipping it open to a chapter that interests me and start reading on that chapter, you learn, your mind expands. And that's where the growth mindset comes in. So on almost any subject that you'd want to become an expert on, i.e. golf, or in my case, leadership development, and how people communicate with each other, we can grow, right? We can grow, we can learn, we can change, we can develop. And
I agree.
If you add to that your mission statement, which is, and your and my mission statements both say, let's become very good at this, right? Let's really pursue these things with diligence. Then what we find is that over time that we get to be leading experts in certain areas. And that builds confidence, that builds competence, confidence and competence. And that gives us the enthusiasm to get up in the morning and share that with other people.
Yeah, well said.
Or do stuff.
Well said, Bob. So you're also addressing in that discussion and some other things which we will talk about in the next coming weeks and months about our program that we're putting forward to actually help people answer these key questions, right? About who am I? What are my gifts? And what am I doing here? What is that purpose? My why for giving and growing. So these are really key elements. Understanding your why and your purpose and having that map really will make us more effective in our execution and living life, which is living intentionally focused on executing on that purpose. So, and when we have that map, it truly makes a difference, you know. And I think that segues us right into last question. What is the reality or the truth about our life circumstance? Do we feel or believe it's happening for us or against us?
Well, to me, the truth about life circumstances is life's hard. Life is difficult. Life has been very difficult at times for me, very, very painful at times for me. You know, many authors would say life is about suffering. There's lots of suffering in life. And I certainly have experienced a portion of that. I'm not sure my share, but it's certainly a portion of that. So I think that's a truth about life is every human being that I've met, yourself included, my friend, has trying, challenging, difficult circumstances, and sometimes tragic, many, many times tragic circumstances. So it just seems to be the truth about life is that the human condition is you're going to experience it. So expect it. Expect that if you fall in love, there's going to be a breakup. If you start a business, you might lose money. If you climb a mountain, you might fall down and break your back. That's just the way of life. Yeah. But expecting it and worrying about it is two different things. So I certainly don't fear tragedy. I don't fear challenge. I don't worry about these sorts of things. In fact, when they come, there's an opportunity to embrace the challenge, work with the challenge, and learn and grow through that challenge. So I'm talking about the
Yeah.
suffering. I'm talking kind of the negative side of life, Heath, because even though I'm very much an optimist, I'm very much a realist too. So I really do believe that you have to look at that side of life and say, I'm prepared for those. I'm not going to look forward to them necessarily, but when they happen, I'm going to find the challenge in them. I'm going to grow and learn from those experiences. So I'd say
You
that for
know,
sure.
you've hit on a key point, and it truly is that pain is the partner of growth. The risk is what brings the reward. If there wasn't that risk of pain, we wouldn't feel elated when we overcome. And I think at the end of the day, everything is our choice. Everything. We get to decide. And I think that comes down to what you just were saying, right? Are we going to choose to create the rituals that are going to drive the results that we want? Are we going to choose to have the habits that will give us the fruit that we really want in our life? And that map will really drive it. So in summary of our fear, I think today we need to come to an acceptance that fear is real and that we need to use the faith killers. Again, I did it. The fear killers of faith and focus, that embracing and then being enthusiastic and energetic, that we can accept it and we can be accountable and ultimately respond by creating the habits that are going to drive the results that we want. So I really want to thank you, Bob, for the wisdom that you shared today and walking with me through this whole discussion on how to respond to fear. How do we not allow it to control us, but to take control back by embracing it and just watching it disappear as we achieve what it is that we want to set out to achieve. Let's go and move forward and create our ideal form of life. So my encouragement to everybody.
Great, thank you very much. But I also want to just for the listener, I would say I've got a couple of more tips. Well, one of the tips comes actually from Heath's incantation or Heath's mission or purpose from it. So he's like often when we're doing this talk show, Heath, and is you want to be practical and pragmatic too. It's like, what can you do today? What can you do right now to be helpful? And I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you've said today as well. So I noticed that you make a choice. Like you make choices. You get up very early in the morning, my friend, and you do ritualistically these certain things that makes you have a good day. It's almost impossible for you not to have really good moments in the day because you do these things on a regimented, structured, scheduled basis, and you've built them in so it's not a schedule anymore. You just do them. And so I just wanted to say that. So here's some of the things that you're doing that I've noticed. One is you eat very healthy. So you make a choice to eat healthy. You have to put X number of calories. How many calories are you doing a day now?
Oh, I don't know, probably 25 to 3,000.
Yeah. So, and you're making choices on almost every one of those calories, which is brilliant. So that's something that you can do very pragmatically, and there's benefits from that. One is you exercise every day, one way or another, and you've got schedules, you've got regimens. You're an expert at this. You can share this knowledge with other people. And I would and buddy, you weren't always like this. You had a period in your life where you were not as fit as you are today. So you've recommitted to certain habits and rituals that have really changed your body shape and really impacted your athleticism. And I'd encourage listeners to actually just ask Heath what's going on there physically for him and eating wise for him. He's really got an excellent regimen, some practical stuff that people would find quite interesting, I think. The other thing is
being a type 1 diabetic makes it that I have to be a little bit more disciplined if I want to actually be around a long time.
That's right. That's called an external motivator.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
The other thing is you read a lot. You're an
Yeah.
educated guy, so you're reading constantly. And bits here, like sometimes long structured stuff, but a bit here and a bit there. So that's a real excellent mental ritual that you're doing.
Garbage in, garbage out. It's such a simple old wise saying, right? And it's the truth of our life. I think it's something that we really, I'm grateful for your kind words. I think that
I'm not finished. I'm not finished yet because I'm kind of going through this thing that you do every day for the listener, because I think it's just wise. It's just excellent wisdom that, frankly, we should all be thinking about doing this. You choose to get excited every day. You choose to be enthusiastic every day, and even though there's moments and days that you're not super excited, that you have big challenges, you make that conscious choice every day. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to do something. I'm going to turn lemons into lemonade some days. You're fascinatingly enough, over your career, you've always chosen a career. Like, you haven't let the career choose you. You choose the career. That's been your 30-year history, my friend, of making these concrete choices. And I would really encourage the listeners to take a look at the careers they're doing. And because I think the stats are somewhere around 60% of all Canadians would leave their jobs in something they really would want to do. I run an HR company, so I'm sort of up to date on these things, but lots of people are doing things they don't love. And I'd recommend against that, actually. You've made outstanding choices of your friends. Like, you've jettisoned the friends that don't make sense, that are not supporting you, and you've embraced the friends that you learn from, that you grow from. And frankly, I've met some of your friends, and they're a heck of a lot smarter than me. And I really like your friends because of that fact. And the other thing that I would say, the last thing I would say, is that you do a fantastic job of looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, these are the areas that I want to improve. But you do that by first saying, these are the things I really love about myself. I really like me. I really like this about me. So you've got a foundation of clarity about what you like and what you love about yourself. I think that's so important for a person to move forward. Is you can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. You can't have really good friends if you don't like yourself. It starts with self-like, self-appreciation for your own skills and your own talents and your own abilities. And that makes, you're able to go forward and make those minor tweaks on the areas that you want to make minor tweaks on, but you've got that foundation. So I think, listeners, we're talking about getting rid of fear today. We're talking about moving forward today. And I think the stuff that Heath does on a daily basis is inspirational to me, for sure. And if you have any questions, give him some questions in the YouTube comments box, and he'll get back to you.
Yes, definitely. I'm extremely interested. Bob, thank you so much for that, the kind words. But I think it does come back to one thing: the uncommon truth that I truly believe in is that it's our choice, and that we have to be accountable and live above the line. And we have to have faith and trust that we can, and we will, and we must grow. That's why I want to be a G factor, that I'm a factor in the outcome.
One more, Heath, I got one more life hack for fear.
Okay.
We're talking about fear today, and it's an important
We
one.
got 1%. I got 1% left.
Oh, got 1%. Oh my gosh. Mel B wrote a book about fear and how to overcome fear. The hack is, if you want to ask somebody out for a date, if you want to make a phone call for sales, if you want to do anything that's causing you fear, get rid of the spider in the bathroom, count backwards, or count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just do it. There's more information on the internet about this, but it's a great hack. You're having trouble doing something, getting out of bed in the morning, just start to count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do it. And it's miraculous. You'll actually get it done.
Nice. That's a great hack. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the Uncommon Truth today with Bob and Heath. And we really look forward to seeing you on our next episode and responding to your input, your questions. And let's continue our journey together as we start and continue to just seek the uncommon truth. So, God bless. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Heath. Have a good day, bud.
Thanks, Bob. Cheers.